Welcome to the Low and Slow podcast.
We're your girls, Crystal and Laken. If you press play today, trust, you made the right decision.
And know whenever you're listening to this, it's exactly the right time.
We invite you to pull up a seat to the conversation, get curious about your current perspective,
and lean in for the opportunity to see yourself in another woman's story.
We created That Girl Magic because we've been where you are.
Here, the talk is real and the breath is steady.
Let's get into your next mindset shift.
Hey guys, welcome back to the Low and Slow podcast. As usual, it's Laken and Crystal, and today I want to talk about something that has been it's been coming up with clients, but also comes up for me quite a bit personally too. And it's this idea of women being told that it's one extreme or the other. So the idea that you either have to drive and go hard and persist and push past anything that's a disrupt to that on your way to success, or it's just surrender and rest and be at ease and let things come to you and be in receivership. And I don't think it's that simple. And we have a hard time with cognitive bias, but are you have to choose, are you bold or are you soft? Are you a girl boss or are you a manifester? Are you grinding or are you in your feminine flow? And I just want to address that because it's something that I rub up against a lot personally.
Yeah, I'm sure that lives rent free in a lot of women's minds, or different versions of themselves where they've seen I've been in this space before and now I'm here, and how do I marry the two to where what is actually me now and what gives me the results that I'm looking for. And I think that topic specifically is something women don't talk about enough, because there's a lot of that's the evolution of what being a woman is, and it's going to change in every season. I mean, think about when you even moms that become a mom, you're not consistently in the same place that you've always been. So yeah, we're diving into that today. I think one of the main things with this topic is giving yourself permission to figure out what both looks like. I think there's that spectrum that we've talked about, and where the pendulum swings far back, and finding the balance in the middle is what feels challenging, because it's is that really me? I know that it pushes up against a lot of people's identity.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it didn't come from nowhere. I get where this more recent messaging around leaning into softness comes from, because for a very long time, due to women being introduced in the workforce and then being told and conditioned, you can do it all, you can do anything you want to do, you can do it, you can be anything you want to be. And that comes with expectations, because you're still supposed to fulfill this role of being able to nurture and provide and be there for other humans in your life. But also, because you want success, you should be able to do that. And a lot of women felt I either have to do it all or I have to choose, and it can only be one or the other. So it doesn't come from nowhere. There is a reason why. And we see this with a lot of things, where the pendulum will go all the way over to one direction and then have to come all the way back to overcorrect. But it is rooted in a real place. So I do want to name that. It's not, a bunch of women didn't decide we're done with working, and so we're just going to sit around and receive, and that's it. We're done.
Yeah. And it didn't come from anywhere. And I think it's when that comes, right, and it does maybe press up against your identity, it's what is the main thing we hear from women, what they talk about? There's a lot of shame around it. Guys, Cruzy is here. He is here with a bone marrow in the back. So if you hear it, that's what that is.
That's all I can hear.
Yeah. Anyway, so yeah, it's when can we name that, right? The shame that's around that. The shame that's when you find yourself really wanting to either pick one or the other. And can you allow yourself to, what if I was both, right? And you're going to be both in different areas, right? And what if there's this thing of I don't have to choose? I think that's also a societal expectation or conditioning. Like, for example, with becoming a mom, like if, do you have to choose whether you're bold or soft in that point in time just because you had kids, right? Or if you started a business, bold or soft just because you did X, Y, and Z. And so what if we refuse to pick and just allow ourselves to, like redefine even what both of those statements look like, and being bold or soft, there's a happy medium in either of those.
Yeah, and because we had this generation of women that were told that they had to push boundaries to overcome previous generations in order to feel validated in what they were doing and what they were putting into the world, I think that created a pattern of those women needing permission to be able to rest, like to be able to receive and not have to perform all the time, so that they could feel validated in because it feels very uncomfortable for those women.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think like the validation is what is I think part of what is the hardest part, because it's like if you haven't seen that around you, especially with other women, maybe being like your mom, your aunt, right? Like women generations before you, if you haven't seen that in your friends, if you haven't seen that in like your workspaces or in places where you want to be, it's like, well, how do I create that? But then how am I also given the permission if I haven't created it yet, right? Because a lot of times when you're creating it, it's like then that is the permission you're giving to other people, but who's giving you that permission? If you're
I think we
seek it,
we seek it from seeing what's available to other women. But that's like the unfortunate thing about that is, from what I've seen, and maybe this is just what my algorithm is tuned to, right? It's the women that are positioning themselves from a place of take it easier, slow down, rest and call in what's meant for you, just manifest it and it will come. All of these messages that are coming through, we're seeing the highlight reel a lot of times. And in my opinion, those women did a lot of really hard work to be able to get to the place to say, yes, this is how I'm doing it now. And I do think it does a disservice to say, you should do it, you should do this too, because we're not seeing what it took in order to get to a position to be able to just receive, to be able to just call things in, to be able to say, yeah, it doesn't have to be that hard. Life can look like this. Well, your life looks like that now, right? But what did it take in order for you to be able to get there? Because I don't believe that is something that just happens out of the jump.
Yeah, but I think that's the thing is like when women are there to show that, like, for example, even the masculine and feminine polarities, right? When a woman goes through, operating in both of those spaces, she has to have experience or where she's done it this way before. Like when we talked about discipline and devotion, we've done it a certain way before where that didn't really get us the result we were looking for. And so it's like, yes, a lot of it is the, not seeing the work that's happening behind the scenes. Why? Because there's shame or sometimes vulnerability around that and expressing that. But I think like even in like the wellness space of like, do this, I don't think it's people saying like, oh, this is what just worked for me, like do that. Everyone has to have your own experience to do have that threshold of where they're pushing, they're still not getting what they want. Or they're falling, like, again, back into that other extreme where it's like, oh, this isn't actually allowing me to take action and be available in this way. And I think it's the missing vulnerability in both of those expressions where, because that's not shared, that's why it looks like, oh, we'll just do this and then you'll get this outcome. But it's like, I don't know. Like when I see things like that, I don't think it's this person saying this is the only thing that you have to do to make it come. I think it's like they're seeing, I've had this experience of what wasn't working and now I'm doing this because this has been the thing that's helped me to get this on the other side of it. But that's going to look different for every woman.
Was that thing not working if it's gotten them to where they are now, where they're able to say, yeah, just slow down, or yeah, like soften now?
Say that again. Was it what?
Like, is it that what they were doing when they were, pushing or driving or, they had the discipline? Was it the case that that wasn't working for them? If it's put them into a position where now they are able to call in that rest, where they're able to soften, where they're able to slow down.
But that's the thing. I think that's what's not talked about enough. It's not that it like didn't work. It's that they pushed up against the new edge there where it's like, okay, yeah, I got all of this and it's still like, not that it's still not enough, but this is still like, this is not it. Like, this is still the feeling I don't want. And I think it's like in that in between where it's like all the things that, get you the praise, get you the, what seems like the outside success. And then you get there and it's like, oh, this still doesn't feel good. That's the missing piece that nobody's talking about. And then it's like you try it a different way and it's like, oh, now this must be the thing. And I think that's why it's perceived that way of like operating in both extremes. And it's like everyone's going to hit a different edge that says, well, when I hit here, I know that this is where something had to change, whether that be like, the cost of their health or the cost of a relationship or a cost of whatever it is. And that's usually the piece that's not shared. But I think when people are sharing things from that place of like, this is what works for them, it's because they've had so many examples of like, well, this is what I said used to work for me. And that also wasn't working. And that's not what they're vulnerable enough to share. It's like what's missing is the vulnerability.
Yeah. And I think the messaging that it has to be one or the other. Right. And at the end of the day, the whole point is you don't necessarily have to pick a side. It's like, can you find your own pace in that? Can you not have to lean all the way into one or the other? Like, are you able to, I guess, be vulnerable and that be rooted, that be the softness that's keeping you in that momentum of that drive? Or when you're in your softness, like what areas of discipline are you still incorporating to create a container for yourself to be able to flow within?
I think it's also like what happens when you're operating in that space and everything that's gotten you to where you've gotten before. If you were to let all of those things go, who would you be? Right? That's where the vulnerability is. It's like if you were to let all those pieces go that essentially built the identity, right? Because it's like, think about like a man's expectations or things. It's like, I'm always this way, right? And I do it this way. But there's going to be different points in times where that has to adjust. And if I was to let all of that go, and this is where sometimes like the both sides gets confusing, it's like, if you've been on both sides, how can you operate in a sense where you let it all go and then you can pick which pieces you want? And that's like what you're saying of like what pieces of discipline did work, right? That do create a foundation and a container for me. And then have this message be like an internal message from what the woman needs, aka your intuition of like, all right, I'm not just going to override my body and myself just because this is what I know gets me the results, right? I'm gonna be more in tune with that so that I'm not making these decisions based off habit or based off like a pressure, and I'm flowing more with the intuition to say, okay, like that's where everyone wants to think it looks effortless, but it's because like she has this internal, like that internal compass has been built because of where both of those spaces like has gotten her. So it's like I'm picking from each side what works and leaving what doesn't. And I think it's just overall having the conversation that's going to look different in each season. Like if you're started the business, right? Or if you just had a baby, like you're a new mom, right? Or, you just got your body back to how was before. And then now it's like, oh, well, maybe I'm going to have another kid, right? It's like it looks all different, but I think it's like the expectation that's there of like, that always has to look the same just because that's a familiar place you've been before. It's like that intuition has to come online somewhere from pushing a new edge.
That's where I think that cycle comes in, right? So every time there's a new season or there's a new thing that somebody wants to add to their plate, or if they get inspired to do something new, it's like, okay, I'll go all in to get the thing, right? And then it works for a period of time, but it's not necessarily sustainable because they're not incorporating any of the other pieces of the rest and the softness and like being able to be intuitive and listen to themselves. And then they'll get results, but at some point they'll crash because the nervous system will like tap out.
Yeah. Yeah, or like even before the crash, like what normally happens, like it's like I'll return to what was comfortable before so that I
Mm-hmm.
can avoid crashing out. It's like it because that's safety, right? Um, is there something like maybe a specific, I think I was thinking about this a lot of times, like where we're talking about we don't have that specifically around us, or if this is something you're internally navigating within yourself if you're listening to this. I think like how we've seen this be handled of what it means to be a woman, like from like movies or from like in music or like in upbringing and in your family dynamic, right? Like I think, is there an example that you've seen that maybe that comes up with clients or personally with yourself that that has you see where the not like where the struggle is, but like where at what point in time is like a common time that you see women struggling with this, being on one extreme or the other?
I mean, with health and wellness, always, right? That's where the all or nothing mentality comes in, where they decide on a new goal or they decide that this is the season where I'm going to really dedicate energy towards the body composition that I want or the fitness goal or the performance thing that I want to do, whatever it is. And they get all amped up because there's a lot of marketing and a lot of messaging and a lot of things that say, do XYZ. And if you meet these metrics, right, like KPIs at an office, then you're going to get the result that you want. And they'll do it based on the template that someone else has set, even though their experience and their life up until that point is not what's being showcased when they put their container out there. Like, oh yeah, what works for me is, training 5 times a week and walking 10,000 steps and drinking this much water and eating this much protein. And so they say, oh, well, that's what I have to do in order to have what I want. And so they try to do all of that, but they don't take into account their current capacity and their current needs about what intuitively their, amount of rest or what the other demands that are in their life. And then they're able to withhold that or sustain that for a period of time until they can't. And then they decide, oh, that doesn't work for me. So I'll go back to either a familiar pattern or what I see is happening now is, oh, well, I push too hard and that's not what I'm supposed to be doing. Right? What I'm supposed to be doing is listening more to my body, but in a way that to me like creates a lot of excuses too. It doesn't have to be all or nothing. It doesn't have to be, well, I'm just going to listen to my body. And that means, I don't actually feel like doing this today. And then tomorrow, I don't actually feel like doing it today either. I'm just going through something right now. I get that. But I'm a firm believer that that also breeds mediocrity, and every thing worth having almost always comes from a little bit of resistance.
Mm-hmm. Is there any other place, like I'm thinking back, like when this has come up with clients and I just keep going back to like a season of someone becoming a mom or maybe having another child or like I know it's talked about a lot with health and wellness and like, making these changes in your life. But outside of that, where it's like, yes, some resistance, there's a difference of the resistance of not wanting to do something because you just don't want to do it. And like, it's like, I think it's this idea of when we talk about both of these extremes is like, not everything has to be hard. Not everything has to be like, for example, like 75 hard, right? Where you're pushing yourself to the extreme. But it's because like we're talking about like you're cherry picking of like, well, what's all worked for this? And I think that's where a lot of times and sometimes pushing yourself to do the thing, even though you don't want to do it, it cuts off the line to your intuition. It cuts off the line of like what is it in this moment you need right now, and becoming really familiar with that because you're pushing past just to get something done. So I think like on both sides, yes, it's like it's not an equal balance of both, but you have to be willing to see where it's like what works for someone else isn't going to necessarily work for you. And, I think when it's like you can operate more in that space of like, asking yourself, like, am I doing this to avoid the uncomfortable, right? Or am I doing this because, like, I genuinely, like, for example, like with what you're saying with, like working out per se or whatever, like, am I doing this? No, because I'm just not in the space to do this right now, and I can revisit that another time. Like, I think a lot of times this is like that balance is like because it mimics another time where you've been there before, where you have disregarded or you have avoided. And I just think like there's not enough permission that comes when you're trying to figure that out that allows you to just operate in what really works for you, because you're just comparing it to what worked for someone else.
I think the same thing happens for moms. Like they'll see, breastfeeding regimens or sleep schedules or behavior work with baby, like all of these things that they look at and they say, oh, well, I want the outcome that that person is portraying, right? So I'm going to do this thing, even if it doesn't necessarily fit with my lifestyle. And I'm going to essentially try to mimic this as identical as possible until I hit a brick wall where then I'm like, well, I failed. And now I'm going to shame myself for it. And then I'm going to go back to whatever. It's like, it's always like it's a big slide to, well, whatever I possibly can do, as opposed to can I, if that's the outcome that I truly want, could I just challenge myself a little bit outside of what was, available to me at the time?
Right. But even in that perfect example, like you said, right, it's like this is where it's like before, like because we see the result of what happens here, it's like comparing of like, oh, I must do that. And then where the shame and all that and the judgment of like, well, I didn't do it like this, right? So I failed. I must be wrong. But it's like that mom cut herself off, and just in the example, cut herself off from being available to what actually could work for her and her baby, because it's like I'm taking on. And I get it. It's like we learn from what is happening around us that to seek the result that we're looking for. But I think that's where like we fall into these extremes, because it's like we're not actually going back with what could work for me here, and let's just try it out. And if I need help and I'm not getting the result I want, then I seek out these other things. But I think it's in always seeking out the result from somewhere else that it's like you cut yourself off from that, being able to, figure out what that can look like just for you.
But if that was the case and you were only ever listening to your intuition, it's like if we were never exposed to anything outside of ourselves, would we push for anything better?
No, that's what I'm saying. It's not one or the other. It's not that we're only seeking out here and that we're only doing the intuition. I think it like you can go back to what is like what works best for you, because you can see that it's being done different outside of you. And I think that's where these extremes fall, is because people want to operate in just one or the other. But it's like, as your can we start to build that, even if something is happening outside of you that is different than how you would do things, it's like, can we build that actually what in your body and like what you need, that comes first? And I think that's why women fall into these extremes, is because there's not that solid foundation there within themselves. And then they only learn by doing the other things, which is like, again, pushing that new edge. But then it's like, it's also the other side of that coin is like, okay, falling into when you're operating in one of those extremes, it's like that it only has to be this way. Like if I don't do it like this, then it's wrong, like you were saying, which is like that all or nothing.
Yeah. And then it creates this familiar pattern where it's like you'll have this big peak and then this valley where you're like dip and fall and dip and fall. And then you're always like pushing past your current tolerance. So you're always going to go back to the set point of like what is most comfortable for you, which is usually what's most comfortable for you is not going to get you where you want to be.
Yeah. I think, the comfort zone too, it's like the comfort zone is you have to like, you have to be willing to put yourself in other things to even test what that comfort zone really actually look like. And I think it's all the things that get created in the in-between, when you're doing things that you've never done before, when you're, like when you're being able to operate in spaces of like, oh, this is where I abandoned myself, or this is where I, pushed discipline away, or this is when I was like so in my feminine that didn't, and that still didn't get me the result that I'm wanting. Of like all of these things start to press up against your identity, and where we talk about like creating the stories, right? It's not that you're lazy. It's not that you're not doing enough. It's not that you're bad at new, like, you know, creating new habits or making change, or that you're not serious. I think there's just so much judgment in when you're trying to figure this out. And why? Because there's so much externally, which is why I'm like, oh, okay, like, can you even go back to what it is internally that you're needing, or maybe, and not even needing, like maybe not even paying attention to, because it's so much noise outside of you.
Yeah, well, and then all of the big flashy things are the ones that are affirmed and get celebrated. So if I only recognize that, and I'm going to do it too, because I'm going to mirror what's outside of me more than likely when I'm interacting with other people. But if I'm only celebrating, or only willing to recognize, or only willing to affirm the big things, not any of the in-between stuff, then that's where it's going to feel like failure anytime that I'm in that in-between. But the in-between is where all the progress is made. And that's where you're able to learn the most about yourself, because you're able to do the things that feel small for a longer period of time and iterate and learn how your body responds to them, and be able to, like you said, create space to listen. But without being okay with being in the in-between for a period of time, you won't be able to get that really valuable data. And the misconception that I see most often is that the in-between, and when I say the in-between, I'm talking about essentially like our comfort zone, and then a boundary that's in place where we've tested before where it's gone too far, and anything in between that, in between the comfort zone and the boundary, and pushing against that boundary to see, are we available for a new boundary every once in a while? Not constantly, but testing it every once in a while to see if we're ready to expand, to see if we're ready to shed, to see if we're ready to grow. But everybody wants to mark only what happens outside of that boundary line, the big stuff, as the stuff that's worth it, or the stuff that's like showcase worthy, the stuff that I'm willing to show to the world and proclaim. And all of the stuff in between, they see that as the mediocrity, but the mediocrity is actually only what's in the comfort zone that's keeping you exactly where you are right now. Anything in the in between is where the magic happens. And then that's where we can iterate and push a little bit when we're ready, and then iterate and try to push again. And that's where that progress is made over time, not like leaping outside of it and then being like, look at me, I'm here, but then I'm going to crash back down to here.
Yeah. And I think that, to your point, it's the like meaning. I remember there was a point in time where I vividly remember making this post about myself, and it's like I was starting to really learn to love myself in the in-between, because when I was pushing those new, like when I was pushing those new edges, that's like the missing piece that wasn't happening. And I would keep pushing and then like going back down, right? And coming back down of like, oh, well, I'm not really, I didn't get to where I wanted to be. And now I feel like I'm further, like a step back. But it was because like in the in-between there, like I couldn't, and that's why I bring up intuition there, of like in the in-between is when you're really going to learn how to like love yourself doing it messy, love yourself. And it's so cliche of like, love yourself. No, like you're going to start to meet different parts of yourself that come with doing the work. Kind of like, you don't know, like when someone says about being in relationship, right? It's like the work you can do on yourself, great. But then you get in relationship and that's a whole different ball game. And so it's like in the in-between, when you are pushing up against the boundary that once kept you safe, or really like when you start to see that like, oh, I handled that differently last time, right? It's like, that's the piece of, can you go back to, as you're learning to meet yourself where you've been before, but respond in a different way, where it's like, then that's when you can expand. And it doesn't always feel good, right? It doesn't always feel good because what? It's vulnerable. It's raw. It's honest. It's also saying I have another mark of time that I have past evidence of, and I'm still choosing to like play in this arena, like put myself back in the place that doesn't feel so good, even if I had an experience of that before.
Yeah, it feels risky.
Right. And we've talked about that, like even like the help, but we talked about the help, the why asking for help is hard, right? Because it feels risky, but it's like the only way you know is like by asking for help. It's like, I'm wanting to expand on this area, so I'm having to put myself back into the arena there. And I think it's in the in-between that if we're not vulnerable enough to be able to hear or address or respond differently, then it's like that's what creates the loop. That's what creates, and then you just keep collecting evidence from that one place.
Mm-hmm. I think my version of this is, from my perspective, a little bit different than what I've been told by other women. And I think it's worth recognizing both sides, that I feel that like right now, with all the messaging that is out there of like what's being shown, and maybe this is just like I said, it could be just what I'm subject to based on like female business entrepreneurs,
Because
right?
what you most resonate with.
Yeah. But the messaging that I am receiving a lot is, oh, don't like, essentially like shaming the work ethic, right? Like shaming like the drive. And it has been really frustrating for me, because the more that I lean into my intuition, the more that I do play with that in between. For a long time, I was trying to find out, okay, like, what is my superpower? What is it that I bring to the table that is, my innate gift? And simultaneously, I was getting all of this information, or all these downloads that were like, you need to take it easy, or you need to slow down, you need to rest more, you need to call in what's meant for you, you need to be able to receive. And the more self-aware that I became in trying to slow down, and that's where the beautiful thing of that, right, is that's what that gave me, is it gave me the space to be able to do that. But I recognize, like, my superpower is my work ethic, it is my drive, and that is where everything that I want happens.
Yeah.
And
I want
really
to pause
struggle
you
with that.
intentionally right here, because this is where maybe, I don't know if this was coming out as clear as it was earlier, but now that we have like a specific example where it's like, this is where, like you're saying, it's like, oh, well, all of this, my work ethic, my superpower, right? It's like, that's where it presses up against, well, this has been the shit that's built me and that's gotten me here. Like you're saying, of like, of course. And it's like when it presses up against what all of these things of like the foundation of like what you've built as your identity, right? Your character, like your all of the things. And when then the outside messaging of like, oh, okay, well, you're here, right? So then like do it this way, where it's like, then your intuition is even louder of like, no, I know I'm convicted. Like I know that this is what's gotten me here, but there's still something about that this isn't it. Right. And I think it's like when you can internally give yourself that permission, then I think you're more available to seek out like what outside is telling you. Can I try that on? Oh, okay, I'm going to try that on. But ultimately, I don't feel good when I do that. And that's the messy in between, where it's like, as I'm figuring that out, what works best for me, right? Can I love my, like around rest, we've talked about this a lot. Like when the to-do list is hanging over your head, right? And it feels like it doesn't feel good if I don't get things done, but it doesn't feel good if I also push myself and then I'm exhausted, right? It's like, can I start to love like the piece in the in-between that's really trying to figure it out, right? And that like invulnerably showing up in those spaces where like I don't have to keep choosing one or the other, because then that keeps me in the extreme, and that it's going to look different. Where you're at in your cycle, it's going to look different. What the hell's going on in your life at that point in time, in that moment? And I think that's just even more where then you, like, as women, we start to then be the thing to give ourselves permission and stop seeking it so much externally, because it's like, I'm meeting myself in the messy in between, rather than when the messy in between's happening, like seeking, okay, well, what do I do now? You know what I mean?
Yeah. I think you do. The idea of understanding yourself is going to be the most important, in my opinion, because only from that place are you going to be able to not self-abandon in that process. Because I'm still met with shame at the amount of drive that I have now externally, and like there was a time where I was like, oh, like maybe, maybe there is something wrong with that, or maybe I need to look at it different. But when I look at it comparatively in seasons, it's like I have adapted, and I do operate at a much slower pace than I used to, and I do listen to myself. I do not override as much as I used to, right? It's like I do feel like I'm meeting myself in that, but because it's like if someone else is comparing to their journey, and then they're like, oh, well, that still seems like really hard, and it's like,
Yeah, but they're speaking on that for them. You know what I
right,
mean?
where I'm
I
like,
think
well, that's not my version of hard.
but that's the thing. Like, I think that's where things get misconstrued of like when, like you said, your previous self of where I have slowed down enough, right? I have it's kind of like the mile markers when you're driving on the highway, right? It's like I have these mile markers where I have this past experience where I know I've slowed down more, right? Or I have this past version of maybe a previous version of yourself. You still see that, oh, like I remember when I used to be that way. But again, it's something that is just more of like an internal comparison for yourself, not necessarily about the other person. It's just like, oh, I can see when I felt of what this person's experiencing that personally didn't feel good for me. And so then it allows you to question, like, does that feel good to them, right? And I think that's maybe where things get missed of like, if it doesn't, women only know how to relate to each other by what is familiar, or what is like what resonates with both, right? Like if you both have an experience of this, but you have a completely different experience because it's your own. But I think that's where like most women can relate. And so I think it's not a conscious comparing, right? Because it's like, again, people's like trauma and stuff, like, right? Like what someone goes through may not be as traumatic to another person as what your trauma was. You know what I'm saying? So I think it's just a thing of like where, like in the advice or what other people are giving, like I think it's like that's how they're relating. They're thinking of a time where they felt like that so that they can relate to something you're experiencing. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like everybody has like a default setting, and they're going to look at other experiences through that setting versus recognizing, okay, how does that feel in my default mode, and do I want my default mode like essentially like that setting always is iterating and changing and adjusting based on what's going on in your life at the time, or your own personal growth and development, or external factors that are at play. And being able to just say, okay, again, that self-awareness of being really familiar with what is available to you at the time. Okay, this is what my default looks like right now. This is what I would like it to look like. What's the route to get there, as opposed to I need to
Like
be
how
there
to
yesterday.
grab.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I mean, I think this is where, it's like when we talk about projections, right? We did a whole episode on that, right? I mean, women are natural projectors. That's just, we are. Why? Because we want to relate. We want to have the space where, oh, I have this experience. And even though it was very different than yours, I think this is women's superpower and sometimes their downfall, right? Because it's like you're wanting to relate. Why? It's a bid for connection, right? It's a bid to create a space or container that is vulnerable, that allows you to be seen and the other person to be seen, heard, felt, supported, all the things. But it's like, I think that sometimes what is the breeding ground for where, because they have an experience of their own that can get projected onto the other person, not intentionally, not consciously, right? And that then when we think about it in that way, it's like, I think it's women's beautiful opportunity to say, even though I'm experiencing something, I have an experience that's very different than yours, can I create a space where it is vulnerable, open, honest? I can hear how the other person's feeling, and I don't need to relate to it, but I can sit here to listen, to understand it, and then also like not take on both, like what we were saying with projections, that it means anything about you, but just to have awareness around that that's what that woman is experiencing here. And like, I think this is where like when you have people wanting to relate and like give each other advice, it's like they can only give that based on their own experience or perception, right? And I think that's sometimes where that gets lost of like, can we just listen to understand, even if we don't agree, or even if we don't really feel that. But I think that's what creates the space that's different within women, because there's a level of vulnerability and every woman is not at that same place. But I think it's like the more that you start to put yourself in those types of conversations or places to be met in the vulnerable, where it's like, then you really start to see something different about yourself as well.
Yeah.
Because I think the vulnerability is what the in-between is. The vulnerability is the allowing to have the other people see parts of yourself that you quite don't know what that looks like yet, right? Or because it's like, it's new to you, it's vulnerable to you, it's vulnerable to share with the other person. And I think it's like in the spaces of extreme, that the middle or the messy or the in between, like you said, it's like the most risk, because that's where it presses up all against all those, I don't want to say wounds, but all the things that have those previous boundaries that you've set, those previous mile markers, right? And then it's like what normally happens. It's like, oh, I got to take this exit. Like, this was too much. Let me circle back around. And then it's like, then you go back to where it was before. And I think this is what is, I don't know, just a special part about what being a woman is that like when we lean into like the vulnerability, especially with another woman, it allows us to, like recreate what that previous bold or that previous soft looks like. It like creates a new version every time. It's like a snake shedding its skin. Like, okay, I just shed that one and now I'm building a new one, but it has different flavors of what bold and soft look like. It's like a completely new skin. And then until that one doesn't work anymore, or not doesn't work anymore, but like doesn't resonate, because we're constantly evolving. Like even who we are today is not who we were 2 months ago, or, or 2 weeks ago, or our last cycle. It looks different every time.
Yeah, I think that's where identity work is really important, because it allows you to get really clear on the version of yourself that you are either want to root into currently if you don't have the awareness, or that you're trying to activate. But I think a lot of times we put that version on a really high pedestal that's out of reach for us, as opposed to being okay with just like the next, like instead of the 2.0, right? Like what's the 1.5? Like what's the in between, or even like 0.25, it's like you feel like you're failing if you're not the extreme or the pedestaled version. But again, it's like the beauty is in the in between. And can you appreciate the iterations that it takes on the way to get there?
Yeah. Can you appreciate the 1.7, the 1.8 before you get to the 2, right? And it's like can you appreciate all the skins that you're shedding or building, right? And not have to, because that's like the all or nothing. It's like, okay. And that's the piece that's, I truthfully, I feel like missing with a lot of people. It's like, God, I'm not meeting what this version of myself needs, because I'm only comparing it to this version of myself, or I'm not meeting what this new thing I'm wanting to step into. Why? Because I've never done it before, so I need to fucking figure out what that looks like.
Or you're only looking at the floor and the ceiling.
Yeah.
Right? Like you don't want to look at, imagine like you have a floor and a ceiling and a ladder in between, right? Like you don't have to just jump and like cling to the ceiling for dear life. It's like, can you work your way up the ladder? But we're so focused on, I'm trying to, most of the time I think we're operating from a place of, I just don't want to hit the floor. And that's
right.
a motivator that isn't sustainable, right? Where if the root of it is fear and all I'm doing is trying to avoid falling back down to my floor, as opposed to keeping my eye on what I actually am seeking and taking it one step at a time and just focusing on the next step in front of me.
Right.
That's where you can succeed. But I think for a lot of us, like that pull versus push motivation, right? It's like most women are running from the discomfort of their floor and not toward something that is sustainable for them. And that can be something that genuinely pulls you when you start to collect that evidence along the way. And that's why we talk so much about celebration rituals, right? Because it's those little things along the way that people want to discount, but until we get accustomed to celebrating it, then our nervous system isn't going to register that it's even a thing, right? It's like it becomes, it's an expectation, a minimum expectation, as opposed to something worth celebrating.
Yeah.
And I know I do this where it's like, well, I planned on that happening. I had that expectation already. So when it happens, it's like, yeah, unless it exceeded that expectation, then it's not celebratory worthy.
But that's the step, right? Like, I think that's a really good analogy. And when the visual that's going off in my mind as you're saying that is like those windy stairs, right? Because like think about like in a lighthouse, right? Like you can look over the banister and you see all the way to the bottom, and it's like, oh my God, that's how much we have left to go. And look up top, but like on those circle things, that is that small little skinny part in the towards the middle, and then it's wider on the outside. And so it's like I actually can only focus on the step that's in front of me because I don't want to fall, right? Yeah. Same thing. But it's like each step that you take, even you get out of breath when climbing high altitudes. So it's like, fuck, I gotta take a second, and taking a second, pausing, breathing, celebrating the wind, whatever you want to call it. It's like the analogy, everyone's climbed stairs before, so you know what we're talking about. Like, as you continue to grow, it's like, oh, I expected to make it to step 50 today, and if I got to 55, okay, exceeded it. But then like the more that you were focused on just each thing and like, oh, okay, I can celebrate as I'm going up, it makes, I don't know, I feel like it makes when you get to the top that much sweeter, because then you've celebrated everything that was happening along the way. And it wasn't just like, I got here and now let's go climb another stairs, another lighthouse or whatever.
Yeah, I think that it's worth touching on celebration, because I think most women don't really have a good concept of what that looks like. They think it has to be something really big or this like great gesture, maybe because of what we see in media or whatever it is, right? But a celebration doesn't have to mean that you treat yourself to a whole spa day, or that it's like it has to be something expensive, or or you go out to dinner, or, it can be small things. See, I'm going to let you speak to this because you're much better at celebrating than I am. But what are some like small celebrations that you will do, or that you talk to clients about, that feels like sustainable over time, or something that can be used on a regular basis or for the in-between reps?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked that. And I want to pause and say, like, there was a time where I didn't do that. I think, when we went through and lifted, L2 really was like celebrating the wins. Like, what the fuck? Like, I think like I, in a way, like did that with myself, like the internal, like, woo, you did that, right? But it wasn't in the way, like when we ask you, like, what's the coolest thing you've done, like as a kid, right? Or like the things that you're really proud of, like when you put it in that language, most adults don't do that. Just like most adults don't say exactly how they feel, like I'm feeling this, right? So it's like when you start to then get the language for it, it's like then you start looking at it everywhere, like perfect. Even just with my clients of like celebrating, I have my clients text themselves. Like if you have an iPhone, I don't know about Androids, but if you have an iPhone, like I text myself often, and a lot of times I like to share it with people around me. Like that's the easiest way of like, I did this today, right? But if it's like, if that feels too vulnerable, being able to just share it with yourself, or like writing it down, or I like to have this also be like a visual thing, right? Like if something happened today, it's even just writing it down that like this happened today, and that was really cool. Like just putting it in one sentence, like that's where gratitude journals come in, right? Of like 3 things today that you were happy about. Or like people will implement this with their kids of like, what was your high and your low, right? Or like, what was like one thing, that you did today that you're proud of, or like just starting to build the language for it. And then eventually it's like you're celebrating it along the way, because celebrating it isn't always, like you said, throwing a party or going out to eat. Like it's not, I think the easiest way to start is with yourself, writing it down, or doing something creative, or doing something like something as simple. We send a million text messages a day. We're on our phone all the time. What if I like this idea of like, and I know there's a lot of women that listen that are in their faith, but like kind of having a message that you would have with whatever higher source you believe in, right? Of like, hey, guess what? I did this today. And when you start to implement that with yourself, it's like, oh my God, like what is the dialogue back then when I say that? Like, hey, hey, see, guess what? I did this. I'll give you an example. I had a childhood dream of singing, and I've been really shy about that. And then I started taking singing lessons, and I'm like, oh my God, like I did a really cool thing today, and I threw it, and I hit that note, and I did the riff, and whatever. And then it's like, then that inner voice back was like, oh my God, that's so cool. Or like the little me that said something back of like, you've always wanted, you've been singing that song since you were, little, singing into your hairbrush. And it's like, I have my clients just start to tell that to themselves. And normally if they're not comfortable telling it to themselves first, I have them text me or email me, or can a lot of times with their husband, right? And I think maybe that's where it's like, when we start to share it with other people and you don't get the response that you want, I think that's where sometimes that is also vulnerable. And so that's why I say, like, start with yourself, like writing it down. Or also, really, just thinking about this, like share it with someone who, I'm not going to say can't give you feedback, but think about like your dog can't talk back to you, right? Or like a baby, right? Like, guess what? I did this today, and like the more you start to get familiar with even like putting that language together. Like I had a client, love her so much. She was like, every week my coach asked me like, what's this, a win and a challenge of your week? She's like, and I can't come up with one. And I'm like, she feels that she can't come up with one. She had been, right? Even with what we had been working on, she had been. But then we've gotten such in a practice, and for 7 days straight, she's messaging me them, right? Like we're starting to build it. And then like now she does it. She picks them out, and she's like, wow, I'm actually like finding that there's a lot. Like she was so shocked. She's like, I'm finding that almost everything I'm doing is like a win. And I'm like, yeah, because you've started to build the language for it,
you
right?
have the awareness of it. Yeah.
And your brain is avidly searching for it. So it's like, that's a long-winded way of answering your question. But yes, like start to build the language for it. Like one thing, right? I set an alarm on my phone, right? I have them message me, text yourself. You don't need to go get a fancy gratitude journal, but even just something simple, like taking a packet of sticky notes and writing down one thing, right? You take that sticky note off, you put it up on your mirror. That's the one that's there for the day. You rip it off. You do a new one tomorrow, right? Like just putting it in front of you so that you can start to see where, oh, I acknowledged that today. Or, oh, even if it was cool, like even let's say like you're let's go for the person that's like the most negative. They don't want to see anything in that way, right? And it's like, I did something cool today, right? Or like, I got my walk in today, right? Or I left work 30 minutes early, or whatever. Like something that is like, you have to start somewhere. And even if it's like one that you think is not that big of a deal, but it's something that you can acknowledge, like you can build off of that. But you got to give it the right environment.
The other reason women struggle to celebrate is because they also struggle to identify their needs to begin with, because I usually put them on the back burner. So a thing that I go through with my clients is looking at when we're choosing a celebration ritual, getting in tune with what do you actually need to feel good. And for a lot of women, that's just time to themselves in any capacity, right? So it's like, could you take a bath uninterrupted? Could you go for a drive? Could you go for a walk? Could you go have a cup of tea by yourself? Right? It's literally just time to even be present with themselves.
Right. Have no noise.
Again, getting access to what that slowness could even look like, a version of it or a portion of it or like a snippet of it. And that can be a way to celebrate. Like, it doesn't have to
Mhm.
be, anything big. It can be something small. It can be something not exciting, but really,
Right.
really valuable.
Right. Or like, and I think like to your point, when you bring up the like, give yourself that time, like I think it's it's those bigger statements of like slow down to speed up, right? It's like, okay, let's break that down for a second. Slowing down is doesn't mean not taking action, doesn't mean not doing the things that you need to do, your responsibilities, but can you slow down enough through the lens of this to celebrate something in your slowdown? Right? Which then once you celebrate it, it does allow you not to speed
It'll
up
build
0 to 100,
momentum.
but yes, right. Build momentum, build evidence, like start to see that it's like, oh, that wasn't that bad. And I liked a little bit
It's
of that.
literally
You
the
know,
feeling of
it's
like,
like
it's working.
like, yeah, this is like it's giving me some juice. Like I think,
Hmm.
we talk about bold and soft and the extremes, but I'm just like, let's just keep it the fuck real. What most women want to feel is fucking alive. They want to feel alive. They want to feel that everything that they're doing is like feels like magic, that it feels like, it's worth it, or it's not like this stifling energy. Like they want to just feel that like it's vital, like they're creating, they're lively, they have like that's what feels like the draw, right, to keep doing something. And I mean that's where like purpose and fulfillment comes in, right? They want to feel alive in whatever they're doing, building the business, being the mom, like. And I think it's like when we cut ourselves off from putting ourselves in the space to even find what that aliveness looks like, because we're comparing it to the last time that we felt alive, right? The last time we felt good in the jeans or whatever. It's just like, how can we recreate what that looks like if we're always comparing it to a time where maybe that's what no longer makes us feel alive anymore?
Yeah. And can you, that's a skill, right? Like, I think everyone recognizes, not everyone, I think most people recognize that working hard and increasing your threshold in that way is a skill, but they don't always recognize that softness is also a skill.
Mm-hmm.
And to access your femininity or your intuition, or doing that not from a place of like, well, I'm burnt out and now I don't have another
Right.
option, and
Mm-hmm.
sinking into it, but being intentional about, oh, how can I incorporate this with practice into my day to day? Can I do it from a place of strength? Can I do it in a way that incorporates what does feel good for me, even if that is like pushing and hard work? Okay, but then can I balance it? Can I iterate and like, it's like go and then slow down, go and then slow down, and finding that pace again. It's like, can I lean into the feminine and also have a really strong work ethic, which is like the dance that I'm currently doing, of like, okay, can I be soft and have all the things that I want and work really hard to get them because it feels good for me?
Yeah, I think it's this idea that, I mean, think about like a automatic car and and driving stick. It's more of the driving stick because the automatic is keeping you there like the whole time and is switching the gears for you. But it's like, when you can, I mean, I don't even know how to drive stick, but when you give it the gas, when like, it's you get what I'm saying? Like
You have to
the
find each
balance.
gear.
Yes, you have to find the balance of the two in order to have the thing go.
Yeah, of your clutch and your gas.
Yeah. I'm like, I know I've been taught, but
I've
not,
seen it
yeah,
done.
I've seen it done. I know what's happening with all the things down there, but yeah.
Yeah, but that again, like you said, it doesn't always feel good because it can be very vulnerable, but that's going to happen in the spaces of like being witnessed and voicing your needs and setting your boundaries and being in touch with giving yourself the things that you need and celebrating the small things in between. And that does require intentional practice. It's not something that's going to just happen on its own. And when it happens from a place of collapse, when it happens from a place of, I just can't do this shit anymore, so I'm going to just do nothing, that's not really accessing it either. That doesn't usually feel good either.
Yeah. Right. Because it removes the choice. right?
Mm-hmm.
That's like I'm here. Well, this is the only way then, right? But it's like, if before we get to that point, can we try something different? Um, okay, I want to leave our listeners with something, because we've been like riffing back and forth about this, but like, what could this look like if you tried this for the next 30 days? Like, let's just take the next month. Like, can you start to put yourself in a place of like, what does, I don't know, like, take a week that you have coming up, like, what does next week look like, and how can I start to like audit what's been happening, what I like, what I don't like, so that I could start to build some momentum, without like blowing my shit up, right? Without going like feeling like I'm creating something that's not sustainable. But even if it's just like for the next week, can I take a look at, all right, what didn't feel good from last week? Like, trying to have these check-ins with ourselves. And then what I have coming up this week, can I implement this one thing, right? Can I sell it? Can I just start looking for the wins, right? Or when something comes up, can I just write that down for the next week? And maybe this looks like if an intentional practice over the next 30 days for you, or maybe this looks like, kind of like having this audit with yourself. And then once you have more awareness around this, then it's like, oh, okay, well, now this is what you call, like, what do you call it? The lowest viable rep.
The minimum viable
Yeah.
rep.
It's like, can I just take something that I know I will do, that doesn't feel like it's too much or too extreme? And I mean, it's kind of like when you're warming up with lifting, right? It's like you need the warm up prep. You're not just going to go all the way to your working weight. Like, can I just do the one that feels like I know that I can do it? You're stepping out on the step that you know is solid before then creating all these other wobbly steps, right? Like, I just need to take the one that gives me evidence to show me I can keep going with it.
Yeah. Can I pick like maybe one area that you're willing to push on within what's reasonable for what's going on for you right now? And then that's the push, right? And then on the other end of that, can I also create space to be able to reflect on that and see how that felt, and learn, like, what can I learn about myself in that arena? What felt okay? Is that sustainable? Do I need to pare it back a little bit? Am I celebrating when I succeed, right? In these small ways. And that's the balance. That's doing both. That's the softness and the push, right? And so when you can do this and you practice those small moments, then you don't have to choose. It just becomes both over time in small doses.
Yeah. Yeah. So if someone who's listening to this today is feeling like, damn, like, that's me, or I'm feeling very called out, or I'm feeling like I'm operating in one of these places, right? And I don't know where to navigate this, like, that's okay. Like, if something you heard today hit, it's because it landed in an opportunity for you internally that's saying, like, I would like to, like, can I just try this? Can I just see what meeting myself in the middle can look like? And if that is alive in you right now, like, I encourage you to follow that. I encourage you to write a little bit about that. See what comes up from it, and not shame it right away, right? Because shaming it right away is going to keep having it come up somewhere else.
Yeah. Yeah. Just remembering that one step at a time, you can choose to incorporate both. You can choose to incorporate softness while you are doing things that propel you forward. And that can look completely different from falling into it out of a place of burnout.
Yeah. And as you're doing this, like, as you're doing like an audit, as you're seeing like what came up for you in this episode, can you start to like think about what you want this next version of yourself to look like, as you're, shedding the skin that you currently have? Like, what do you want this next one to look like? How do you want it to feel? How do you want it to, how do you want to show up? Like, can you be even very clear on what that is, even in just a couple words? And then as you're doing these things, right, like, it's like you're operating from a place of like, I know where I'm wanting to get to. I'm not just throwing, wet spaghetti at a wall. Like, this is the thing I'm working towards. Like, this is where it's like, oh, the things you're calling in, right? Like, what new, what am I trying to say? Like, what new like characteristics or like attributes does this next version of yourself have? And can you get really in tune with her? Like, can you know what she feels like? Do you know like what she looks like what are the things that she's doing on a random fucking Tuesday? Like, I don't know. Like, can you allow her to become alive in your mind or in like a writing practice or in like a dream or something that allows you to then say, okay, like I've seen it, right? And now how do I take little pieces of that and start to create that for me?
Yeah.
So bold and soft, not just bold or soft, or bold's not right or soft's not right. Like, it's like it can be an and thing. We don't have to be bold but soft on the inside. Like, I think it's like, I don't know, I resonate very much with this. It's like there was a part of myself that was so hard before, and then it's like, oh, you know, you've said this about me before, like you get to know her, she's soft. It's like I don't want to be either of those, actually. Like, I know that there's times where I could be, you know, like needing, I guess, hard, right? But then there's like, no, innately, yes, there's softness there. And I think it's like really nice when you just don't have to choose. Like, it's bold and soft is also a part of you. It's an and thing, and you get to exercise like when that comes out. That is something you can give yourself permission to do.
Yeah. So if this resonated, please like and subscribe. Please hit us with that review. We really, really appreciate it. If you know somebody that this would resonate with, please share it with them. That would mean the world to us. Subscribe on all channels. And then we'll see you guys next time.
Yeah, we'll see you in the next episodes. Drop in the request to reframe your words or what 2.0 version of you looks like. We'd love to meet her there. See you next time. Bye.
When was the last time you felt truly clear and at peace?
Maybe you've been asking yourself, why can't I just feel peace?
Most of us don't just need another escape. Vacation is great and all, but what we really need is integration.
When's the last time you gave yourself permission to play? As adults, we don't do that enough. And this is to be messy, curious, maybe even a little wild, like the little girl you used to be. She's still here. She's just waiting for you to say it's safe to come out again.
That's why we created Peace, Play, Love. For 7 days in the Costa Rican jungle, luxury meets real life with story work, somatic practices, and nervous system tools that help you not just reset here, but take that peace home with you.
I've been bringing women to Costa Rica for years because this land and the people have been a part of my own healing journey. And all of us have left transformed for the better.
At Peace, Play, Love, we'll slow down together, we'll breathe, we'll meet the guilt, the shame, the exhaustion, and learn how to alchemize them into permission, into softness, into peace that you can actually feel in your body.
This retreat is deeper than a pause. We're not just unplugging you, we are rewiring you.
I've witnessed these women laugh from the depths of their souls, feel reconnected to who they truly are, tear up from actually taking in a sunset, and watching as their shame, their stress, and fears all float off into the great beyond.
You'll map your next season with clarity and leave with insight to keep your nervous system regulated and your choices aligned long after you return. We keep it small on purpose, just 9 women, each supported through high-touch coaching, sisterhood, and real community.
The women who come, they're do-it-allers. They show up no matter what. They climb the mountain with the weight of the world on their back and a smile on their face, because that's just what they do. But they're looking at this next chapter of their life, and they know that they don't want it to feel like the last 5 did.
You don't have to hold it all anymore. You don't have to keep proving you're okay. This retreat is your safe place to land, and it's your invitation to play again.
There's something magical in this land that helps you find the magic in you. The light turns on, the weight lightens, and from there, you decide what the next chapter will be and who you will be inside of that on your terms. This is the magic of saying yes to you.
If you're craving calm and clarity that sticks, this is your invitation to join us in Costa Rica in June. Come exhale with us and remember who you are beneath the noise.